Emmerson Mnangagwa to step down. They're accusing him of nepotism, corruption and incompetence. Now, Mnangagwa took charge after a military coup that ousted his longtime ruler, Robert Mugabe, back in 2017. Let's take a look at Mnangagwa's economic policies and the state of the country's economy. We're joined this afternoon by Dr. Prosper Chitambara. He's a senior economist at the Labour and Economic Development Research Institute of Zimbabwe. Dr. Chitambara, thanks for your time this afternoon. Perhaps we can begin with an update because there have been various reports about mass protests, but it does seem that people have stayed away from the protest. The streets are quiet. Perhaps you can give us a sense from Harare on what the very latest is there.
Well, I think from what I know, most people have stayed at home. I'm also at home. So it has been quiet. I've been seeing reports on social media, on X. It seems the streets, especially in Harare, are deserted. And I think that's the situation across the country. The public commuter operators are not on the streets. So most people, I think, have preferred to be a bit cautious and stay at home and monitor the situation as the day progresses.
Right. So people have largely stayed at home, but I understand there is a much larger police contingent that's been deployed to the streets. Are you seeing evidence of that?
Yes, we are seeing evidence of that on X, on social media. There is a heavy, in fact, the build-up of that started, I think, a few days ago. So yes, there is a very heavy police or security presence across the country, especially in Harare, in Bulawayo, the main cities and the main towns, yes.
Would you say, Dr. Chitambara, that the mood is quite tense in Zimbabwe at the moment? People are unhappy. They are wanting to vent that unhappiness. They are wanting to take to the streets to protest. They're unable to do so.
Yes, the mood is very tense. The situation hasn't been very good, the economic situation. The economy has been facing a number of challenges. Economic growth has not been fast enough. We've not been creating sufficient jobs for the people that want jobs. The economy has actually been informalizing. Zimbabwe is one of the highest levels of informality, and so most people are eking out a living in the informal economy. And of course, that creates a lot of problems because informality is associated with lack of access, for example, to social protection. So that exacerbates the poverty situation in the country. Income inequalities are also widening. The country has suffered or experienced chronic high inflation, I would say, for the last 2 decades. And obviously that has affected investments, local investments, but also even foreign direct investment inflows into the country. Over the last 10 years, the economy has grown on average by just under 2%, which is grossly inadequate, given the fact that population growth has averaged almost about 2.1%. So yes, we've seen some positive changes, especially with respect to infrastructure, the dam construction during the tenure of the current president. But I think the extent of the challenges that we are facing probably requires a lot more to be done, especially in the social services sector, in health in particular. It has experienced a lot of challenges, lack of drugs in clinics. And when you look at even our numbers in terms of, say, maternal mortality, the numbers are still on the very, very high side. And informal employment in general, according to official statistics, 85.5% of Zimbabweans are employed in the informal economy. Yeah. So obviously that's a major challenge.
Yeah, and government workers, particularly teachers, those in the healthcare sectors, they've staged repeated strikes over the years over low wages. You've talked about the lack of drugs in hospitals, poor working conditions. Businesses are facing collapse because of this economic instability. But you say that there are some green shoots, and they are in infrastructure.
Yes, infrastructure, especially the dam construction. I think that's very critical. But what we now need to do is to invest in irrigation. Both our economy has been affected by climate-induced shocks. We're just coming from a drought. So we need more land to be under irrigation. Currently, only about 20% of arable land is under irrigation. So we need to increase that. If we can get to at least 50%, Zimbabwe can become again the breadbasket of the region. So yes, there are some green shoots. We have discovered natural gas and oil. But I still think that the challenges that we face, I think they need all hands on deck and a unit of purpose. I think especially the political protagonists, need to set aside their sectarian interests and differences and come together for the sake of the prosperity of the Zimbabwean economy. We saw it during the time of the inclusive government era. The economy had managed to stabilize, but after the GNU, the economy again started to go south. So I think without some kind of unit, some kind of a social contract, I think it will be difficult to really get out of this economic quagmire that we are in. So I would really advocate for our politicians, the main political protagonists, to come together, probably form some coalition government or an inclusive government that brings everyone on board. And then we try to address these challenges, because our country is highly divided along political lines. The levels of political toxicities are on the very, very high side. And obviously that has affected growth in the country. So I think we need to unify, to come together. But of course, it takes the leadership to be able to bring everyone together or bring everyone on board. Yeah. So I think that would be my appeal as a scholar.
Right. And I don't imagine that quashing protest action from people who are struggling. Zimbabweans are struggling under the economic conditions, soaring inflation, the local currency, widespread unemployment. So that's the one thing. Quashing any protest action by being very heavy-handed in the way the country polices that protest action. And then also, I suppose, what adds fuel to the fire is that the president is rumored to be wanting to extend his constitutional two-term limit. Yeah, I think that has been very problematic even within the ruling ZANU-PF. I think that has created factions. I think the mood generally is that most people would want probably the president after his second term to go. And in fact, the president has also said that he's not going to extend his term. But of course, there are some people within his party that are rooting for his term to be extended to 2030 or even beyond 2030. So I think that has been a major challenge. That has really divided the ruling party. Yeah. Would you say, Dr. Chitambara, just talking about just the state of the economy and the various things that have been instituted to try and give some cushioning to the Zimbabwean economy, the introduction of the ZIG in April last year, that was born from, it was essentially a policy move, right? And has it borne the kind of fruit that it was intended to? After the performance of the ZIG has been very mixed. Initially, when it was introduced, yes, there was some stability. Then 2 months later, we had some instability again. But towards the end of last year, we saw the government tightening up things, especially on the monetary policy front and also on the fiscal policy front. But remember, one of the biggest drivers of the chronic high inflation has been the excess money supply growth. So you have too much money chasing too few goods, which creates inflationary pressures, but also too much money chasing too few US dollars, which create exchange rate distortions. So over the last, I would say from December last year up to now, the liquidity situation has been very, very tight. So that has resulted in some modicum of macroeconomic stability. But of course, in spite of that, we've seen the annual inflation numbers in US dollar terms have actually increased. I think it's largely on account of the plethora of taxes that have been introduced as part of the 2025 national budget. But I would say there has been some stability from December last year. Whether we are able to sustain that stability or not, I think time will tell. Because that has also come on the back of government not paying its contractors. Also, that is also helped in terms of limiting liquidity supply on the market. So I think the idea now is to try to sustain that stability over time, because I think that will be very critical, especially in terms of attracting greater foreign direct investment inflows and also capital inflows into the country. Because obviously no investor, whether foreign or local, would want to invest in an environment of chronic high inflation, because it creates uncertainties, and obviously that also weakens the return on investment. Certainly. Let me thank you for your time. Dr. Prosper Chitambara is a senior economist at the Labour and Economic Development Research Institute in Zimbabwe. And of course, we continue to track the situation there with growing tensions, particularly in Harare and Bulawayo. Zimbabwe security forces apparently placed on high alert with more military and police units deployed.